Alright, we here. Peace, peace, peace. Oh, man. Oh, man. Woo! You know how, greetings. I start off by, just give gratitude to everything. Give honor to Source, to the Creator, the Most High, whatever your higher power is, Let's clap it up for ourselves. Hercules. But anywho, you know how you still trying to set in after taking a nap? Tell y'all bear with me. I really came here to talk about this amazing masterpiece that I have behind me. I feel like I got everything positioned perfectly. Oh man, I didn't realize how much it looked like me, my lips. But yeah, I'm gonna give y'all a close up soon to really give y'all the details. And I wanted to get the lighting somewhat, natural lighting in this so that what I'm discussing can be like, oh, how am I gonna come into this? What I really want to discuss, because I've been sitting with it a while, about even how this masterpiece came to be, and the whole process of that, even currently the state where I'm in now. And so a lot of what I'm going to discuss is going to relate to a lot of those, which I'm going to shout out to all of you that have and is currently battling some type of depression, have dealt with, building or rebuilding your self-confidence, have dealt with self-doubt, have dealt with even going through a process of where some may have called you crazy, loony, in a way to where you're trying to fight through mental clarity, or trying to get some type of mental clarity in your life. And, let me see, y'all bear with me, because I really want to talk without even blocking this in a way. But let me see if I can reposition something. Just gotta be, bam. If y'all see my setup, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. Like I got a basket and I got some materials and stuff, but hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. It ain't no tripod or whatever. Just let me see how this looks. Yes, we're gonna go with that. I feel like that changed, even if it didn't. Let me see. I don't know if that looks the same. Okay, I feel like it. Anywho, so yeah, shout out to, again, those of you, because I'm going to speak from my experience, why this masterpiece to this very present moment means so much to not me, but to the collective, or to people who have battled with some type of mental disorder, mental illness, and or generationally, like what it has meant for me, this whole process of even completing and to having the courage to even to have the courage to speak about it and create it. There's, I feel like there's so much hidden that artists don't really express. And one thing about me, that me being in my own lane and me creating my own way, or I feel like I have been selected to create masterpieces as such, that symbolizes and reflect back not only the internal world or what I went through, my own internal battle, but to highlight the reason of, it not really having to express it, but really having, the masterpiece speak for myself in a way. But I love speaking and have gained that confidence of speaking again through my journey. So now I'm able to talk about it, and then I'm able to showcase it as well. So my masterpieces, or what I create, again reflects my own internal battle, but it has a lot to do with, I like to title it healing art. And as you can see here, this is 3D, and we have some little trinkets here, or things that really make this whole masterpiece, like, just in my world, priceless. And I've been, over the years, even when I was unconscious about it, due to my healing path, didn't really know what depression was. I didn't really know what a lot of self-doubt, a lot of things when it came to my childhood traumas, when it came to traumatic experiences. I didn't really know that these things had so much effect on my life. And now being able to reflect and see how I navigated through it, being able to see how others that are in denial about these so-called things that they're unaware of, these emotional blockages, the traumas, and me being able, as a man who represents the patriarchal, but again, being birthed from the matriarchal, still carry that feminine and masculine energy, and being able to reflect back on what I went through to bring more awareness to how it is as a man, where in a world, being a darker color man, to express how I feel, or that being automatically, like, just thrown to the wayside because of how societal norms, or how we as darker colored men have been put in this box or labeled, just other stereotypes of just being angry criminals, or just being classified as things that don't really hold substance and value, or that is in any way empowering. So a lot of what I create, I say, is healing art, because it comes from the wounded aspect. And as I navigate and have navigated through my own journey, I have a way to express it through my artistry, through my words, through my art, whether that be poetry, just basically through everything that I, whether y'all see it or not, express through my own authentic expression. And so a lot of what I create inwardly helps me see the oneness in every individual, but also really focusing on young men, again, everybody who has went through, or the younger generation who probably don't even know what they're experiencing, or have the awareness, who don't know, have the awareness on how to navigate their emotions, or even getting the genuine support, when it comes to battling with their frustrations, their emotions, trying to unlearn the mental warfare in their minds, of trying to stand up and be who they are without it being automatically shunned, or men such as myself when I was younger, who were shut out or didn't have a voice, while we were innocent. When we speak up, young, it would be pretty much like you will get in trouble. And that started real young, in the church environments, in the home environments. And so that played a major part on my mental development, not just my emotional, but my mental. And that has been one of the most challenging, if not the most difficult things that I feel like myself and a lot of men in my family, and probably a lot of you out there, whether young men of all ages, that are battling with, or will come to know that what they've dealt with may have been some type of mental disorder, or discomfort in a way. So in the process of me rebuilding these things, I had to go back to the root of where these things were, go back to the wounded aspect of that. Like I said, from one, the church environment. Um, there was this thing where I grew up at where a lot of, kids couldn't stand up and speak. But and I mean by that is like the authoritative figures were normally first and foremost like a pastor or preacher. So there was so much emphasis on a certain deity, religious figure, to where it was almost in a way how I've spoken about on my other YouTube, how that almost X'd out even the man being present in the home or having a say so. So how that affected us as kids is that it felt like, well, I need to speak up for myself. My voice also is valuable, but automatically that was like cast aside or pushed aside due to the fact of, well, in the word or in the Bible or in this, it says this. And this is not to discredit whomever religious beliefs and what you choose, ideologies or whatever. That's not my concern. This is me speaking from my truth. Let's make that very clear before people, I can feel you coming. But at the same moment, to each his own, because you ain't going to get a response. But what I'm speaking of is my own experience where I saw how the deity, again, externally, how it was used from, in a place where some of our women or the women that I knew automatically looked to this person, and that, to this deity or figure for more of an external support or fulfillment. And as a child, again, me wanting to use my voice, and then how that played on my mental, me seeing it, absorbing it, and then who do I go to? For me as a young man and a young boy, my first, and I didn't really I don't even think I discussed this. It's like memories come up as I talk about this. Is that having gone through just environments where with my mother and her, boyfriend at the time, who was like a father figure or a stepfather in a way, that abusive and conflict environment was not the only one. I also, when my mom was out in the street or doing what she had to do and so forth, my grandmother stepped up, and then she also had a husband who also was abusive, who also didn't say the best things to young men such as myself. And again, you have these elders forced to be in a position where they're not only taking care of one grandchild, but there were I recall it was either like 5 or 6 of us, and you're talking about I just recall like at that moment like 3 of us in one room, and this processing in my mind to where immediately when you are trying to just be a kid, and then back then there was a thing where spankings were something to be a justifiable thing when a kid didn't when they talked back, or when they did things that wasn't the caregivers or whomever were in alignment with what their rules were and so forth. So that being said, these environments I didn't realize not just affected me emotionally, they played a lot on my mental. So that's been one of the most challenging things, me now being 34, but just in those earlier years, teenage to 20s and so forth, those traumas really took a toll on me because of when I was angered and I didn't have an outlet. I didn't have a mentor, or I didn't have that father figure that, at that moment that was really something healthy. I didn't really basically have someone that I felt safe to express it. So you're talking about years of repressing those things and keeping it here. It became a mental prison for me. It became a mental, and I know a lot of us can relate to this. where your mind, you become at war with yourself in your mind, not just in your body. It's more to just repressing the anger, but the memories, the memories that come up from your subconscious, that play out from before you even experience now a healthy relationship with myself. And that is, again, where I'm getting into how this reflects now rebuilding a healthy dialogue with my internal world, with my mind, and so forth. So this has been one of the most, again, challenging storms that I had to maneuver and learn how to be the eye in my own storm, and or learn how to be the rainbow in my own life while navigating or coming through something that I didn't even realize I was battling with, some type of depression or again, self-doubt, before I rebuilt confidence within myself to even create again. This is after 2 months of, it's been 2 months since I did something painting. I took a while, I've been doing videos and so forth, but again, through that, there's still memories that have come up. And this is the thing about where it ain't really discussed, but I talk about it, it's like, my journey, I've had memories come up since I was a child. I've had memories still come up in certain ages where, things come full circle, of self-realization, like, oh my gosh, I was talking to my partner about my very first experience of, my grandmother or someone telling me, when I was I had to be between the age 2 or 3, or just a baby, I know that. And the memory coming up around how I was found on the street at a young age. And at that young age, anything could have happened to me. And then me questioning the fact of, if they have memories of this and me not really having a memory of it, but them knowing that I went through that, it makes me question the character or the integrity of my mother. And already knowing that my father wasn't there, but it's not so much of that. It's just, those things that do come up when it's dealing with the emotional abandonment, the physical abandonment, and so forth. And then had not someone stepped in, or just, I wouldn't be here to talk about it. But just those things of what's been said years ago that was told to me, and then those memories still, resurface about, this is what your mother, did, or you were there, but you may not remember. And then, other things that come up around the experiences. We're talking about thousands or tens of thousands memories or things that we have just experienced alone in childhood, or even hundreds of memories that you have. It's wow, the power of the subconscious, or even the mind in itself, to where it could become this caged bird. And I used to feel like that caged bird. And then coming to that self-realization that, it gradually changed, because that mindset of the caged bird is like being in an environment caged in. And I felt like there was nothing more at times. And that's when depression and certain things could set in, because if I haven't faced this or know how to navigate it, a lot of us go through those moments where we don't see beyond our circumstances, or we don't see an outcome. And that was, I realized something generationally that I was changing or breaking, because of certain men that I saw, speaking from the patriarchal aspect, certain men that I saw and witnessed who went through that cycle of, either being abused verbally, physically, or mentally, or even sexually. And seeing that generational trauma pass on, and then seeing them going through the loop of, drugs or prison, or even really not fulfilling their dreams or having that genuine support system. So, when you're talking about not just the men, but you're talking about the women who also, when you look at your hometowns or when you look at certain environments, it's like we know that person, like, they can have money, or they've been living in the same environment their whole life, or they just, again, the fear mentally, rather than facing everything. I like to use that term, like fear is facing everything and running, or facing everything and rising. So I, again, at certain moments before I elevated, or before I chose to step out of my comfort zone, I first had to see where this cage mentality, or some may call it, like, you can call it enslaved mentality, comes from. And that means, like, even generationally, it's not just, when you're talking about breaking generational chains and traumas, you're also talking about a mental pattern of a poverty mindset, or a mindset that just is solely focused on just that this is all that they have, in a sense, or nothing, life is, there's nothing outside of their, not just their current circumstances, but how they live and perceive life. There's nothing outside of the certain environments, even the relationships, even the partnerships that they develop. There's so many things that you can, like, think about, or just come to your own awareness of how someone personally that they don't, some of our elders that never left their hometown, or so many people that never left. And again, to each his own. But again, when you know that certain things happen for you, and those opportunities could have presented themselves just as the same way, for you, but also for others. But you realize that very thing that was keeping them caged or trapped was their mindset, was how they view life. Did they view it more in a wound, from a wounded mindset? Because again, wounds are just only internally, but you can have a wounded mind, or a place where you feel like you cannot escape the fact of what has happened to you. And that's why I feel like a lot, when you're talking about not just repressed emotions, or things that we internalize, also connect to memories. Because you're talking about subconscious mind and neurotransmitters. You can research these things when it comes to the mind. Things that things that replay. And I had to learn this through researching, learning from my own experiences of certain traumas, or certain things that, I wish I had my notes, how it talks about certain things when it comes to dealing with childhood traumas, and how those memories can resurface. And with that, it triggers something within us, and it puts us in this fearful mindset, or puts us in a place of scarcity, flight or flight. And that's something that I dealt with for years. I didn't even know what it was. Certain relationships, or certain things will be said, or certain actions will be displayed, and a memory come up around that, dealing with my childhood, dealing with a person, and then again, when those things come up, I didn't have, again, like I expressed before, I didn't have the opportunity to go to that person where I felt safe, again, whether it be a mother or a father. Because when these things happen, and there's more I got to read about in the book, when it talks about how the body keeps the score. It talks about how those things where we should have felt protected, or the ones that hurt us, initiated the pain first, were the same ones that were supposed to protect us. So that was one thing that really I battled with a lot, from those very first relationships, and then entering relationships where this flight or flight will come up. And I could not run to the mother or father for safety. So I would display this behavior where I can self-sabotage a relationship, because I didn't know how to navigate the emotion. And what I mean by self-sabotaging, there would be moments where my anger would be expressed and it would be uncontrollable. Or there would be moments where I would just walk away or completely shut down. Because again, this is the programming. These are the things where I didn't know what depression was. I didn't know what repressed emotions were. I didn't know, the list goes on and on. I didn't, having awareness, I didn't know how the brain developed, and how the body really does keep the score. The memories that come up and resurface over time, and then how these things are still a part of our experiences in these relationships that we build. Learning to trust again. That was one of the most challenging things. Trusting myself to show up for myself, to have faith in my creations, to have faith in being me. That was one of the most challenging things as well. It's like in my mind, let my mind tell me like, oh, that looks somewhat similar to what I've seen before. And some of us know that. Like, you do, then you trying to, what? You're doing what? And it really, it sends your body, because the brain, the brain, everything is connected. So those emotions that we feel, those things, those memories that surface, it automatically sets off something in the body. And so, again, from these relationships that I've seen so much of, and that's why I feel like what is really challenging in a lot of ways is that from being around environments so much that I develop so many memories around unhealthy patterns, unhealthy people, foundations that wasn't trustworthy, interactions. That's what, again, from my experience, was most of. Now, was there a balance? Yes. But I'm now realizing how much I have to grant myself the worthiness, the safety, the security, and being, at ease with myself now. And that's been a process, and still an ongoing process. Because a lot of, some of the masterpieces I have created, I realize some of them like really reflect my own internal world, or things that I would cry out for. That's what makes it so amazing, to where when you see people who write music, they can relate to that. It's like they're writing, but that emotion, that everything comes from somewhere. Everything. So when I see an artist or I see someone expressing something, I automatically observe me like, I wonder why they did that. And then think about, sometimes unconsciously we don't even know that we're doing something, or in a way to where it's like, wow, we can see the amazement behind it. At the same moment, I see the message, but I'm like, okay, it's got to be more there. There's depth to it. Like, if it was up to me, it would be bigger, so forth. But that's the beauty of like this infinite process, or this process of like healing and unlearning, and one layer pull back, then you're learning this part of yourself, and then you're learning this part of yourself. So that's where I have, over the years, learning from things that are resurfacing with not just memories, but the emotional purge, and then the memories that come behind that, because again, they're connected. It makes me realize, like, what did I feel then that I did not honor? That anger and frustration, that I knew that I did not deserve that whooping, or I did not deserve to be treated or talked to that way. And that can be displayed, or, memories can come up in so many ways, whether your interactions with people, with your current relationships, and so forth. So for me, the mental thing about all of this is that, as a melanated man, or as a man that's darker, a lot of this, the beauty of what this demonstrates is the empowerment. It's like me saying something without the words. I don't have the words to say, but again, here I am speaking about it. But if it was up to me, it may speak to you in a different way. So from my experience as, again, melanated man, or a darker shaded man that have been in a country who, in a way, automatically shuts out how we feel, how we think, how we show up. Nothing empowering. So this masterpiece is dedicated to all of you. And it's not just if you're darker or not. Again, from my experience, it says a lot for me, because even with the hair, men that look like me, I don't know no outlets. I don't know any other artists. Like I said, I'm not in anyone's business to know what they're doing. But from my purpose and my current place that I'm in life, my state of being right now, this is showing to the young men that look like me or maybe don't look like me, but showing like the empowerment behind big lips. Those of you that have big lips, a big nose, natural hair, anything to where it shows that you are valuable, your mind, your thoughts, where we have had, or I told myself, I know I've had through so many years of being at war with myself. Some of you now that are going through or have gone through some type of trauma or some type of experience where you have to question your mind, you have to question your sexuality, you have to question who you are as a man, as a young man. You have to question your masculinity in a way, but not just that, not meaning just a man, but you questioning, where you should be more of masculine and or feminine, but in an energetic way. It's like this represents the balance between the feminine. When you see the flowers, the beauty of the butterfly, and you being watered, and that starts inwardly. So that feminine and masculine aspect is those energies within us. And that's things, again, I feel like even as young men, as men, we have questioned because we have been around people who have not had knowledge of these things or were operating in more of a masculine, hyper masculine or hyper feminine aspect. And that created some type of imbalance within us to have self-doubt, how we show up. Whether we want to show up, because again, this is something I knew when I was younger. I knew that I carry more feminine energy. And with that, I normally expressed it. This is something I had to accept, not only mentally, but internally, to where when I grew up, I didn't, my art, I looked at myself as a masterpiece, as art. And so again, due to those certain climates where that wasn't embraced, and this is for a lot of us, our mental, emotional, how we, spiritually, physically, how we wanted to show up, we were never embraced as little boys. And so this is again how I dedicate this to the young men and to the sons and to the fathers and so forth, to know that, you that have been battling with questioning who you are. Again, there aren't people or whatever they're doing, empowering the fact of how our mental and how we need to express or how we haven't had a safe place to show up. And so this is why I love what I do, because, advocating for mental health awareness, this is mental health awareness. Going back to when I was younger, I grew up around a lot more women, or being in certain climates, or seeing how I grew up around wounded women, forced me to be more hyper masculine, step into a fatherly role so early. But I still, and I can see the imbalance or how I became more hypersensitive as well. And you see this with a lot of environments where a lot of us young men, or a lot of us when we were younger, we grew up around a wounded mother, or a mother that really didn't honor who we are or respected who we are as your little boys. And that's the thing that, again, we're fighting for within ourselves, because with men, it's about honor and respect, honoring who we are and respecting us for who we are as men, or just as simply human beings. And so just seeing the criticism about everyone going against each other, and then woman versus man, and, little boy, even putting us in this blue and, blue versus pink theme, and, all these things that the world has created a social norm around, what to be as a little boy, how a little boy should show up, or how a man should even show up. And I gradually start to reconnect with that feminine aspect of who I am, that feminine energy, And I came to that self-realization with all of us as men is that your emotional state, your mental and everything that you experience will always be changing like that of a woman. Meaning like you learn your emotions, you learn what it was to be nurtured and so forth from that experience, from that matriarchal experience. And so we also just display that just in a different way, but so much similar to women. When I self-reflected and I start to really reconnect with my own emotions, I realized my interactions, my first interactions were women who were disconnected or who normally embrace or held so tight to their anger, to their woundedness, to where some of us I know as young men, or depending on where we grew up around, we cling to that. We cling to that even idea in our minds that we had to be a savior for those type of women. For those type of women. That's the thing I realized over time, that, not just the emotions, but the memories of what I used to do with my mother and for my mother. And then realizing, coming to the self-realization, no, the clarity behind that's not okay. That wasn't okay. And so then allowing that anger and frustration, then allowing emotions to come up. Then again, letting go and making peace with the past, making peace with those memories. And to allow myself to open the door to new memories with healthier women, with a healthy, most importantly, a healthy dialogue with myself. This also reflects that. But again, it's through our own experience, through my own experience, from a little boy who was growing, who that sun will illumine, internally, in the spiritual sense, that sun who also, when you look at in the metaphysical sense, everything nature reflects our internal world. So when you're talking about the sun has its purpose, the moon also has that purpose. So we are also those aspects of things when it comes to nature and how nature reflects both feminine and masculine, properties or energies. So we've been in this mindset of thinking the sun is supposed to just do these things. But that moon aspect, in a way, that those emotions, those things that have an effect on all of us. So we're talking about being in environments and places where that internal world of the women that we were around and men, them putting or masking who they really are, they're not really, we soaked this up through what we seen, what we heard, and it affected our internal world. And so then we had to declutter. Over the years, I had to declutter, I had to cleanse, I had to purge out this idea of not just societal norms, but even the types of people or character development that I had, the mentality I had around women, around men. And that reflected both what I experienced through women and men, and also that those wounded parts of me that I had to see. Whether my mind as well. If my mind, if I don't have the confidence, and I've been around people who have displayed, self-doubt, or have displayed these behaviors that are not in anything in alignment with integrity or authenticity, then not only do emotions come up around it throughout the years, but the mindset. I had to realize I've been around people who had a mindset of faking it till they make it, or being everything with inauthentic. It's not to say certain things that they didn't show up in ways, but the confusion around, what is to be true or what is really honest, the emotional manipulation that I, came to the self-realization about, seeing women or seeing environments through music, through certain things that have displayed emotional manipulation. things, the environments, culturally, so forth. There's so many different platforms or corporations to where, again, mentally, they have pushed the narrative of, if you're talking about like the music instilling in someone, not knowing how to not teaching them how to navigate their emotions, but in those environments where it's teaching you to go out there if you're angry, because that emotion, you go out there and hurt somebody, or you go out there, intentionally do something. So those are things that, again, I had to mentally declutter. And so in learning to see my mind as a garden, to see my mind as something beautiful, it's been a process. Because again, everything had to change. The old version of me, if I'm asked, these are versions of myself throughout the years that I'm able to look back and realize, oh, this is how I developed this mindset. Oh, this is how I took on this narrative. And I cannot ignore the fact that the music plays a major part in that. The conflict-driven environment, the people that were around that gossip or the emotionally manipulated people, the energies in a sense to where there has been, again, spiritual warfare or battle, not only in the heart, within ourselves, but in the mind. So I'm like, it really, when you talk about breaking generational chains and curses, it took a while to where, there were moments where emotions came up. And then my mind would go into this place when I was younger, because again, how the music or how certain things affected my mind, to where I'll be like, do I got to seek revenge, or, creating a scenario in my mind of, well, this has happened to me before in a relationship, or, what do I do now? That flight or flight comes up. So many things that can keep you from experiencing a more harmonious and blissful life. And these are stages or different phases that I realized I was going through to get to this place now, to have a peace of mind. That's, to have a peace of mind, literally, like, to get up and not overthink. I tell myself I have an overpowered mind, or I have a way of having all these ideas, but again, not having these environments where they were supported, or not having the people around you that support those ideas, who are willing to pour into you. So again, being in environments where there were emotionally manipulative people, being in businesships, partnerships, and now being able to feel safe and secure again, to feel safe within myself, secure within my mind, to feel worthy of expressing what I'm doing now, and or to sharing my ideas, to protecting it in a way to where I know that this sets up, not fearing the outcome if I decide to, put this here and do this with this person. But again, the mindset around how I developed those fears, how I had scarcity around interacting, the mindset even growing up, which is, in a country, America, where the black and white narrative is pushed so much, being in environments where you're talking about going and traveling and being in communities where they're predominantly, Caucasian or lighter skinned people, and then mentally, the things that come up when you see a police car, when you see, having to talk a one-on-one with someone's like, you will never know the feeling of that, being a darker colored man having to look over his shoulder driving. That mentality that some of us unconsciously think that don't exist, but this is the programming. We have been programmed to see that. And that's a mindset I had to get away from, but at the same time, accept that some people still live in. Some of our elders who still have that mindset of black and white. And it's not to blame them or point the finger. It's also me seeing how the wounding around either what they experienced, what ancestrally they experienced, or even the narrative that was pushed to keep people divided amongst themselves and disconnected from the oneness of who they are and how we all are valuable, how we all are an asset. And, you know, speak, and even that topic again, like from being in environments where even if you're darker, you're talking about being in environments where some of us got bullied, or some of us were, you know, the verbal abuse that we take, you know, hearing that first person tell you that, oh, you know, even getting through the mindset, the earliest stages where your mom telling you you ain't shit, or you're bad, you know, or you're, you know, hearing from cousins or, you know, elders like, you need to whoop his, you need to do this. If you don't make these grades, you won't be successful. A lot of mental shit that are planting seeds that have been planted in our mind. Societally, if you don't look like this, if you don't have this, you know, those stains going in our mind from the things that we see, commercials, even on how we're displayed as a people, even, you know, the frustration around trying to get up and walk out in a community, in environments where if you're even in a darker environment and you're just confidently trying to be yourself. And, you know, me, again, like I said, my upbringing, certain parts where I didn't want to be around everybody all the time, or even taking this route of artistry, even wanting to do, you know, do my creative endeavors or do something different. The courage it takes, the mindset it takes, because people are like, you ain't gonna make it if you do this. You better go work. You better go, you know, hearing it from people who look like you. Like, again, everything is visual, consciousness, energy. So it's not just what people think it is, darker people. It's all different types of things that, again, that our mindset or has affected us mentally. So from being in environments where there's unhealthy patterns that we have developed through, you know, that's a mental disorder. The mental illness around even people believing that people have it better just because of their skin tone, or even people have it less than someone that's dark, you know, that is not in, you know, their neighborhood, not going to their school, not playing with a certain team, you know, not having this career. So many things that learning to just be still, having to get through this shit. So having those talks with myself, those internal battles, having to make peace, having to decipher which thoughts are mine or what does no longer serve me. Oh, that's not my thought. That's what my mama said. Then having to navigate that. A lot of us having to realize that, oh, that wasn't my success. That was something that was planted in my mind years ago from, you know, someone that I loved, or someone that was telling me this is the best route. And I took, you know, someone, you know, we take on that narrative and then get to a place like I didn't listen to myself. So there's so many things when it comes to not, you're talking about from a physical to, you know, I always say I speak on different levels from, you know, my own experience as a man that, you know, a young boy that's dark trying to, I didn't care to be the next basketball player or, you know, football player, certain things. I knew early that it just wasn't for me. I just always knew I was destined. And I always knew that I was walking out, you know, I was living my destiny, whether I, you know, was going through something or experiencing something. I just always knew. And it's even more challenging trying to have the mindset with being what we call entrepreneur, or even living out your purpose. Then seeing the things, seeing the people fade away, seeing the environments change, seeing who really, you know, coming to that self-awareness, getting the clarity, oh, I did not have, like, the light bulb goes, I did not have that support. Oh, I see why this relationship didn't work. Or I see, you know, having to grieve internally, but still having that memory of those people that, you know, who did transition, that death. So having to, you know, still have those memories come up, then you know, those emotions, you cry, then not, you know, telling myself like, you know, it's okay, you know, getting in that mindset, well, it's okay to feel this, but now we gotta press on, we gotta move on. So it's sometimes I don't even know how. There was moments a lot of us could say, man, how did I do that? Why did I do that? Questioning our existence or questioning our life, you know, things that come into play where on my path, dealing with suicidal thoughts because I didn't feel enough. I didn't feel like I was worthy of this experience. I didn't feel like, since I did not have the emotional support, you know, when I was younger, am I having battling with suicidal thoughts when I were from like, you know, later teenage to like early 20s and stuff, and not having that support because, you know, you telling someone this or not having to someone to confide in. And I would encourage anyone who is battling with things as such, where you feel like there is too much and it becomes overwhelming, in any and other way, in every way, seek out some type of support. You know, whether that, you know, I'll use the term professional support, but any way where you can, you know, find a common ground or find peace or harmony with what you're going through. And when I say that, I'm just gonna be fucking authentic. I in no way encourage, because I've known people, because again, I tell y'all, I speak from a holistic perspective and not a medical. I do not encourage medical shit. That's just me being real, because I've seen the effects of that. I've seen people go through that, you know, and that's just where I'm gonna leave it like that. I just feels like a lot of things that can be, you know, you find a solution to. A lot of these things that is going on in humanity, a lot of people can really sit down. And a lot of things that are, you know, speaking from my awareness and my level of things, is like the things that a lot of what we have been experiencing, because you do have people out here that push a narrative of holistic, who actually know how to, you know, assist people or support people through things as such. This is why a lot of us are in a different realm of things when it comes to certain practices. And from my experience, I will always, number one, encourage a holistic approach rather than seeing someone dope the fuck up. And that's just real, because I've seen people firsthand that have been battling with stuff mentally and that automatically put or thrown to the wayside for some type of greed, for some type of money, rather than genuine support. Because you're talking about people such as myself that have dealt with sexual traumas or certain things that really need genuine support with therapy. Because even with therapy, there are things where it's still centered around greed. There's every therapist, you know, is not really there for that genuine support. And I feel like the moments that we're shifting in when it comes to the frequency and things are changing, a lot of things are being restored to where people such as myself, and I'm not proclaiming to be no therapist or anything like that. It's just things that we can say relatable that can help. We never know what type of message or things that we can, you know, share from our own experience that can help or, you know, support someone in their time of need or in their time of trying to ascend as a soul, or on a surface level, physical level, where they may not know how to navigate certain things. But you just never know. Those of you that are sharing your message, speaking, you know, speak your truth and so forth. Who cares? They're going to talk, the haters, whatever, but let that motivate you. And that's another thing with me having to be confident. And you're talking about, again, a fucking world that hasn't empowered even humanity, and or especially why I talk about these things when it comes to little boys that look like me, that don't really have the genuine support. And it ain't just about going out there, and I'm talking about beyond the social workers, beyond the people who want to just classify them as certain things and never really get into the fucking roots of what's going on within them. Not asking them, how are you doing? Are you okay? Mentally, emotionally, physically. Speaking from my experience, not having that to now being able to share it, to help empower, using my art, using my natural gifts to empower, to let little boys know that you are beautiful. Your mind is beautiful. Your spirit, your soul, your essence, you are beautiful. And you too will someday do the same thing and express it through your own unique way. This is my path of me learning what and how I had to navigate through my darkest moments and being able to see the light, being able to be the rainbow in someone else's storm. But I had to recognize that first within me, to empower, us as men to be able to speak up, speak our truths about how we also have been, sexually abused, that are by men or women. Us now having a voice to really talk about things, to where we've been in the careers or being in certain environments, no matter your status. I don't care where you are, no matter your status, where you've been in these environments where you just want to feel seen, normal, heard, embraced. And I don't just mean externally, it's challenging where, we haven't been shown, or just we haven't been taught, or it hasn't been instilled in us, or we have come from environments of people who have held these generational traumas or blockages where we have to face it and come to that self-realization like, wow, nothing's going to change unless I change. And then now being able to have that genuine support from, the women and men. And to keep that narrative, push that holistic narrative. So, and not force feeding people, continue to force feed people these things that are going to, we assume is going to medicate them. Religion is not going to just do that. Medication is not going to just do that. Any other outlet where we have seen that has been going on that has not brought forth solutions, where we know that it's rooted in woundedness, it's a different approach now. And whether people want to accept it or not, they're part of that old narrative, that old world. It's a different approach now. I had to realize I am worthy of a life that is peaceful or harmonious. And you do too. The mental, that mental thing about seeing the beauty within myself is that I realized it was generational. Seeing the men, seeing their environments, then being able to walk away, having the courage to walk away, but that doesn't still mean I forget about the youth. I realize now the responsibility in that. This is the responsibility. When we're talking about, even though I cannot be there physically for a lot of the youth, I still can realize that they'll someday and somehow I'll be able to reach them through my legacy. Even with, the kids, my princess, or even the kids that I go out there and see in the communities, automatically seeing like, well, even though it's none of my business what they go through in their homes, but you never know how your path may lead, or they may be called to be on your path again. That ripple effect, that mindset around, I'm going to decide to be the generational curse breaker. I'm going to change this narrative of living this way, acting this way, behaving this way, speaking this way. That mental also is affirmations, having to reprogram my mind to believe that I can do this. I am sent here. I'm on a mission and I'm fulfilling it. And I'm already fulfilled. I'm already whole. I'm already prospering. So even the challenge in that. So I know the beauty of, having young men to see the beauty in this. The beauty in the fact of knowing that you're growing, you're blossoming, you deserve to be watered now. So reflecting back things that, look like what I'm going through. I'm not here to make comparisons about what someone else is going through. I'm not getting into that ego battle or that. It's about, again, sending a message down, the responsibility, and seeing what I went through, seeing what I've gotten through, and now being a rainbow for that. And I ask my mothers, and I ask a lot of you, depending on who you are, why isn't this message shared when it comes to a lot of us knowing that our sons, whether you're in a single parent home or, whatever you're going through, allow your sons to be able to see a man that he can honor his emotions, that can walk in integrity, even if he know he has shortcomings. Does he still walk in authenticity? Allow your sons to be surrounded and visualize and hear a man who walks in his divine masculine, who honors both feminine and masculine, who knows the importance of he comes from his mother, who knows the importance of the matriarchal, who knows the importance of what his mission is and his purpose is. Because you are responsible. What your sons listen to, what they see. You are the first teacher. That's why I always get on our mothers, because a part of the matriarchal or the feminine, divine feminine energy being restored is to see the woundedness and the distortion in both the wounded aspect of what the fatherly energy and the motherly energy, and how they both, energetically played out through the matriarchal and the patriarchal, which you see now that's being destroyed. And you see these men being exposed to you, because you got to ask yourself, mothers, no matter what you look like, no matter your color and creed, because to the depths of your soul, those of you that do know, y'all know, to the depths of who you are, you know exactly what you prefer or what you rather your son take in and see and embrace, because it's nothing like what you've experienced with men. Because I ask myself, there's a responsibility in breaking generational curses or wanting to change or evolve, when I realize, no, I don't want my daughter or my princess, to, model after any of these so-called celebrities or these people who are displaying this false inauthenticity of what it is to carry morals and principles. And I'm not at all, because a father that is in tune and honor who he is and seeing the woundedness, why I can immediately see the woundedness in the mindset around these women. So why would I even encourage my princess or even let her listen or display that to her? So it's like, our mothers, what are you doing? Ask yourself, challenge yourself. You don't want your sons interacting or involving themselves with what these so-called, these rappers or entertainers or certain people are doing. You don't want them to be involved with things as such. So when it comes to that, it's not only a mindset, but this is the healing or, the things that are happening internally. Those of you that are going through these challenging moments where, the world, hey baby, doesn't look like, oh, we can do it in a little bit, okay? Daddy gonna finish this, all right? So getting back to that is that's what, So that's what this is about. It's like, again, my mindset, gradually through the healing, things had to change with my internal world and with, coming into this awareness. It wasn't always like this. This is me having to experience those who were wounded, their dark moments. Then me trying to take on the mindset of, as a little boy, how we're like amazed. Because we naturally, when I see kids, they have this fascination of the world. And you got to see, what world have you been allowing your child or our kids to be fascinated with? Then are we surprised with what they have a fascination for as they get of age? You got to realize that's the mental disorder that we have developed. I had a fascination, and in reality, I had a fascination for porn. I had a fascination for, being verbally abused, being physically abused, and then, again, certain things displayed, or having a fascination for thinking that, oh, I gotta be tough, but I always knew to the depths of me that wasn't me. It was never my path. It was never my path. But I realized that fascination for those things, or living in this fantasy world, had nothing to do with the reality of what the divine sees as, prosperous or abundant, harmonious. You got, mothers, I love talking to y'all. It's like, ask yourself, would you want your child, your son and or daughters to grow up in a world where they can honestly be who they are? Because you have a responsibility. No one is exempt. The karma, I told y'all, is an energy. And by clearing those karmic, energies of karma being passed through your family, you facing these things generationally, there's a responsibility. And as you navigate through it, there is a reward. This is like, again, getting through what I've gotten through, this is the reward from, it's then when I speak about inheritance, it's not just something physical. Inheritance, you can inherit trauma. You can inherit certain things through the wombs of our mothers. We have inherited certain generational traumas or certain generational curses. But you also can inherit. The beauty of inheritance is that it's not just physical. Let's say, if I grew up in environments that were conflict driven. So facing a generational trauma or breaking a generational chain is that you have an abusive environment. So if I choose to break that generational curse, then I choose the mindset has a change. My internal world has a change around me choosing to use my hands to heal and not harm. So guess what I inherited? It's not just for me. The importance is the daughter or the descendants that come after you. Do I want to instill in as I'm here presently, my kids would inherit that mindset of what it is to be prosperous, abundant, or harmonious, peaceful. Because I'm talking about not just memories, you're talking about the emotion, you're talking about spiritually. So the inheritance is more of an internal thing that reflects outwardly. So within ourselves, we have to really go look back. And I realized, like, okay, did my family inherit it, or over time through my lineage, how did this come about, of this mindset or these ways of being like that, questioning that? So the beauty of the ripple effect or breaking generational curses is a generational reward of your children that come after you that will inherit, a world or create an environment that, they inherit to being authentic, to being, to love themselves, to express themselves, in a sovereign way, to just be, to show up in the world, to create a world where they are, it don't matter what someone looks like externally, they can interact with other kids, and as they grow, again, they break that generational chain or pattern to where, again, this has been going on and on. So when I look at the men in my family, most of what I saw, I just knew them as either being womanizers or along the lines of either, being physically abusive. Most of what I see, but then I also see what they went through. They didn't know much about having repressed emotions. They didn't go get therapy. So certain things I realized, like, wow, if I was to have a son, I would want my son to model after what it is that I am navigating or have navigated through, so he can see, that yes, this is what his father got through. He didn't have to hide it, but he can see the integrity and what steps he had to take to get there. And he can see, not only reflect back generationally what I have experienced, his grandfather, and so forth. That's the importance of knowing generationally 7 years before, 7 years after, or just having the awareness on, your connection with your ancestors, the land, and so forth, and realize, like, what am I here to continue? And I mean by the ancestors that have the highest good for, yourself and humanity. Because not everybody, when you look at certain people, that's a clear depiction on some people do not want to prosper. And so a lot of us, what I realize is that leaving behind certain things is leaving behind the old mindset, leaving behind the old family, leaving behind the patterns, the behaviors, leaving behind those things. And as you create a new lineage or a new tribe, or you come and meet someone, you have a responsibility to whether you want to consciously change and take the initiative of walking in your purpose, or having the courage to put those old narratives behind, or taking those old narratives of what you've experienced through your family lineage and recreate another narrative or another story. But that's also me realizing that I had to learn to be the main character again. I had to learn to take up my own burdens, or take up my own, take full accountability of my role. And in that, I had to not continue to let the men, the women, and so forth that I seen, the things that I processed, the memories, the emotions, to override my decision, my intuition, me honoring my path. And so that in itself is calling for a lot of us to, change our mindsets, to remove ourselves, to relocate, to travel, to do things completely different. You ask yourself that, again, it looks different for everyone. But this image in itself is a season where I had to realize, like, in focusing on myself is me watering myself. Is, me learning to sit down with what has happened or what I have seen in my lineage with men. And then taking that role, because again, it's going to look different for men and women. But if the challenge is for some of us to really sit down and, I told my partner, I said, look at what your family, look at, most importantly, you represent the matriarchal. It's not to say not to be attentive to men and women, the patriarchal aspect. But when I used to say, like, when I looked at myself and I saw how the men that did not prosper or carry the mass, or, didn't know how to mentally express themselves, or, or had a healthy mentality, or was very emotionally impulsive, or just, I had to really, like a microscope, like literally look and be like, oh my God, this is what's going on. I had to get to the root of it, because I was a part of it. Whether when I was younger, I would see it, go through it, and even sometimes be on the receiving end of it, to where I realized the patterns that I also developed, the character. Then I also had to be aware that, the mentality, the inauthenticity. And I had to see both from, again, as a little boy, I'm growing into this manhood, I'm growing into this fatherhood, and so forth. So I had to be very detail oriented on, really seeing the unhealthy patterns, seeing the things that I'm here to change, and really having the courage to step out, to do things, and again, like talking to my partner about the fact of, like, a lot of, like, basically mothers and women, all of you, when you see where you are now, really look at the women, whether it be your mother still present, your grandmother, or just the women that even surround you, your environment, your support system, and really look at, has it been, because it's going to reflect your childhood, whether you like it or not, because that's what, again, where our first character development begin. Our mindsets, our emotional, basically our foundations when it comes to emotional, spiritual, physical, and mental. All of that, those foundations started there. And then you see what you inherently, when you see the patterns of people, those are things that were inherited. Because we want to immediately think that, when we look at the dark and light of things, your family lineage also has things that are inherited. And it's not just what you see in the light. When it comes to generational curses, or in the sense of like karma, like energy, I used to sit back and tell my partner that I was like, you know what? I was like, I can't give you all the answers on your path. But when you realize, when you're connected with someone and you come together and you have a child, and this is why I see that, most of the community, due to the woundedness of certain people, that they don't pay attention to or are attentive to. When I start to see the patterns of my father and my mother, and Spirit was putting on my heart to like really look at the mindset or really see what's going on. And as you gradually grow, things start being revealed. Sometimes a lot of you are to come together. And if you are aware of that, because it can be challenging when you do, you see these things that you have to change, but then you have a partner, or you can be in a partnership and or marriage where you have children by someone. And that's karma that has come with you. And that's karma that has come with the other person. When you co-create with them, again, you're talking about energetically what has come from their lineage, what has come from your lineage. And the mindset around the women on their matriarchal, the men in their patriarchal, on both sides. Then you're talking about each partner has 2 caregivers. This is why I tell people, when you go back 20 generations, you can research this. You're talking about over tens or hundreds of thousands of people. When you're talking about 2 per person, you can just calculate that. You're talking about karma that has followed people, whatever their experience has been on earth or wherever. You're talking about things that where they could have been in a whole other climate. Not climate, environment. Or they could have experienced something. So a lot of things I realized, like when I hear my grandmother talk about certain things when it comes to her connection, or how her experience was, because I was able to see my experience with my mom with men. So I could not see her mindset. Come on, basically. And then I would see the mindset of the men she attracted. And when I realized, I was like, it's not always what she attracted, but basically I could see the wounding, see why she would succumb to that, or see why her mindset or internally she didn't feel worthy of that, of something better. Because again, it reflected her own internal world. So when we really look at the relationships, or when we look at our partnerships, or what we have dealt with over the years, ask yourself, a lot of this shit that you're facing, or a lot of stuff that you're like seeing, has somewhat been experienced before you got here. Because when you look at a pattern of mama, when you look at the mindset of how they think that's beautiful, baby. You're fine. Amazing. I love it. We can put it up on where you want to put it in your room up there? Okay, Daddy gonna put it up there when we finish, okay? But when we look at the mindset, this is something that I had to gradually realize, like, when I say was my thoughts my own, I do not mean that in a way of like, I'm saying like the mindset of like being around people, their environment. We soak this up. We take this in whether we want to accept it or not. So even certain unconscious patterns where we feel like, oh, I'm nothing like my mama, I'm nothing like my daddy. But in reality, these things we've inherited. We have attributes, not just features, but we have developed a pattern where, again, when you around mama or daddy, whomever it is, that foundation was created upon control, emotional manipulation. How did she even get your father? How did she even interact? How did your mom and dad come to be? It's a lot of things to where not only mentally, But again, you know, how do we know, when you really reflect back on these things and really sit back and have conversations with people intellectually, it's not just their words, but it's the way they process in their actions. Are they even aligned with integrity? So again, over the years, I realized like so many things, not just memories coming up, realizing when it came to, the mental illness and developing such mindsets of not knowing how to process emotions. So that impulsiveness around it, and not wanting to face certain things, the memories that come up around that, the emotions, the mindset, even just around me wanting to even be like someone else rather than myself. And you see a lot of that affects the youth now. It's like even the things that they're given through television, again, you giving your children these things to where you don't realize it's helping them, it's child development. So when we look at our earliest stage, I realized that how I got here is I had to unlearn and declutter what society, what mom, what this person said, and really reconnect myself to the source, or the internal source, or the divine of what it is I'm here to do. And reconnect to that child, that imagination, having a fascination again about the things that bring me peace, joy, fulfillment, harmony. Again, that has been a process. I'm not going to at all act perfect. There's certain things I did not understand or comprehend until I was in a relationship, or until I was in a partnership, or certain things where I had to realize, like, wow, the mindset I had then in the partnership, that relationship, that sense of feeling worthy, not just in my heart or in my being, but feeling worthy in my mind, to know that I can do this, to know that I can create this. And so this says a lot about, I feel like if you really sit down and, matter of fact, this goes back to even the video I shared about that, I forgot what the project was called. And it was basically years ago, or this study, how they put little kids in front of each other. In front of these little dolls. And they had the dolls of different colors. And this right here, again, the mental disorder that people don't even see early. But even there was a time where I could relate to that, to where, again, if I see people that predominantly look like me, and this is just my environment, suffering, going through things, but then I go over here and I see people that, oh my gosh, they got better food, their house is bigger, yada, yada, yada. All these things that as a child, there's a natural fascination to the world. Children find amazement in the simplest things. I'm telling you, like, my daughter talk about some jokes with a pickle and a peanut butter, something to where I'm like, is it really that funny? But in reality, that's their natural state of being, which is joy, which is finding joy in anything, because again, we come in that way, or it's natural for us. But that doesn't still mean we don't inherit these things that our mother and father have not faced generationally, or has been generationally down a lineage. So again, the fascination in even how our mind has been programmed to believe that a certain, levels of things, that certain people are, better just because of their skin color, or, on a level of things to where certain people in their career are better, or, just those mindsets of being in an environment where you're surrounded by people who don't see past their current circumstances. The television giving this false programming, well, this is how people look that look like you. Can you send them 5 or 10 cents? Like, what is that? Or just only being fed rappers or people, who are of a certain status. And what people don't realize that generates, or how it processes that for a child, yeah, we see this fascination. this is how your certain people are of status are in certain places, is because the energy that's given to them. Until we're not even realizing who these people are. We're thinking, from my experience, when we're young, I'm thinking like, this is, oh wow, look at such and such. He jumped so high. Look at this person. They can do something that I cannot do. And it's not even that I cannot do. It's just what has been fed to a child so young for them to even believe that this person, oh my gosh. It's like idolizing in a way. And so here it is, we're giving more energy, and what you see play out into the world, we're giving more energy and more support from a wounded place to these people of certain status and careers. And when I say a wounded place, deep down it's coming from a jealous or envious place. I'm not saying all, but I'm saying like in a way to where a lot of us in certain environments had grew up through survival, because as we getting 20 in our 30s and our minds are more matured or processed differently because that's how we evolve, then again there's a whole narrative of the man gotta protect and provide. He gotta go out there and make $100,000, $200,000 to be with a woman. That mentality. Then you see the mentality and how our women develop from their wounded state, that what a man should be. Same thing goes for men. And so you want to talk about the mentalness of even trying to instill in people that, do you really see the beauty in your own mindset? Do you really see the beauty in yourself? And these mindsets that we have are mental. That's one of them. But you're talking about the spiritual and how we develop, who we are, our character through the emotion, then how we express it through the physical. So, the foundations of all these things, has it really been watered? Has it really been healthy? What have we been fed? And in reality, we're just now birthing a whole new world centered around this. We're already, in the process of planting those seeds and those roots are now probably gradually spreading before we even see where we already seeing with, those that have this awareness. And what you see, this awakening or this transitioning, or this, some may call it like, spiritual awakening, healing journey. There's so many things. I'm not going into depth with that, but it's, again, having, from my experience, my interpretation, my perception of things as a young boy, and to be able, to the depths of my soul, to be able to share and have it relate to the collective and or people, and to even the young men that will come after me, the little boys. Because when I look at my world, because your world is different, everyone's world is unique, but when I look at my world in this grand scheme of things on earth or whatever, as a man that's not just darker, but I have to be like, how can I recreate a world where it's more peaceful for me? And then being a father, how could I create that after I depart? What could I, where is my legacy in? What kind of seeds am I planting? So when I reflect back on the mindset, where I was, I have to be very aware, to now decide I deserve or I'm worthy of a life that, however that looks or feels, or, the bigger picture, to even seeing those that come after me again. How could I plant my seeds? And so it starts, again, most importantly with you, the mindset you have, the mindset you're letting go of, the support system, all that reflects the internal. And so the beauty of it is like, it gradually allowed me to come into my own, this new way of, this new character development, this new authenticity about myself, how I show up for me first, and then how that has a ripple effect on everyone else around me. So I'm gonna leave y'all with that because I got some things to do. And yeah, again, what are you gonna do? What purpose? You have, everyone is valuable here. And I love this masterpiece because I'm just greatly, it really just shows where I have gotten within myself, and to be able to express it through my hands. That's magical in a way. Like, to be able to express it and to have this natural ability to do that, coming from what I experienced. So yes, this is a season to be watered, to learn to water yourself, and then to be open to those watering you. And so the beauty of a lot of this is showing that how I now went from an experience of pain to gain, and now blossoming and seeing that how renewed my mind is, my being, and how it is I'm showing up. So I'm gonna leave y'all with that, man. You know what I'm saying? Peace and blessing. Shalom.